All right, so testosterone. What does that have to do with stress and stress hormones? We're talking about cortisol and the role that it plays in the endocrine system, how our adrenal fatigue, our adrenal function or dysfunction can affect the different aspects of our endocrine system. And today we're tackling testosterone. Now, I want to say that testosterone is generally thought of as a male hormone, and rightly so, it should be. But females can get testosterone deficiencies as well, and that can cause a similar problem as what males experience. And so both genders are going to experience lower energy, but also lesser muscle function, so that you're going to have less ability to gain muscle. You might even experience low muscle mass, where you're losing muscle. Gains at the gym, performance at work, if it's a very physical work, whether that's out in construction, whether that's in healthcare, lifting patients in and out of bathtubs, or whatever it is that is physical in our work, or even at home. Testosterone helps us to do those things. It helps us perform. So now, what this video is now talking about is two performance hormones. Okay, so cortisol, two performance hormones. We're talking about cortisol, a performance hormone. Why do I call it that? Well, I know I've called it the stress hormone all along because everybody else calls it the stress hormone. And I suppose that's valid because cortisol gets produced in times of stress, but it depends how you define stress. Stress doesn't necessarily mean that you're like exhausted and overworked and then you almost got in a car accident. That's one thing. That's stress for sure. But I'm under some stress right now. I've got some cortisol production right now as I do these videos. And to be honest, the fact that I'm doing this video at 6 p.m. might affect the quality of my sleep later. But we'll get into that. Testosterone is also a performance hormone. Okay? Cortisol gets produced when we're doing something that we're a little nervous about or that challenges us a little bit, and that's all. Cortisol is also a performance hormone. We produce it from our adrenal glands. In addition to a little bit of adrenaline, when we are challenging ourselves, when we are pushing our own comfort zones, or when our comfort zones are being pushed, whether we like it or not, cortisol gets produced. It's not necessarily a bad thing. There's such a thing as good stress. It's such a good it keeps us circulating, it keeps us moving, it trains us. It's kind of like you go to the gym and you lift a bunch of weights and then you get muscle soreness. Well, we don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. In fact, a lot of us will aim for that. In order to build muscle, you got to break down muscle fibers, right? In order to create, oftentimes there needs to be a little bit of destruction first. And that's where cortisol and testosterone come in. Testosterone is very much a get-it-done kind of hormone because it helps us have lean muscle mass. It helps us have mental focus. It actually helps us bring our blood circulation to certain parts of our brain so that we can do, learn, and create certain specific things. The nervous system and our hormones are more connected than we think. But when you really look at it logically, of course they are. So, testosterone. Strength, resilience, mental fortitude, tenacity, stubbornness, healthy prostate, hair or hair loss. In fact, you'll see, at least in males who have very strong testosterone levels earlier in life, they'll convert their testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, DHT, later in life. And these men who enjoyed lots of testosterone earlier in life and are still enjoying lots of testosterone, do end up having an increased risk of male pattern baldness, top of the head, as well as enlarged prostates, because prostates will respond to DHT, and so will the hair follicles, particularly at the top of the head. And I don't have an explanation as to why. It just is. But, so there's side effects to hormones. If a female's got excess testosterone, there's usually a problem in the estrogen pathway. And they can get some male pattern baldness as well. They can also get a little bit of hair around the belly button, darkening. And most of us have like little downy kind of hair, like little invisible hairs around that, and that can darken around the belly button. If we have a dysfunctionally high testosterone as a result of an estrogen deficiency, but that's for another video as well. How do cortisol and testosterone come into play? Well, this one's actually quite simple. Elevated cortisol, lower testosterone. And it's as simple as that. And how beautiful is that? You know, you get a very intelligent male, just keeps it simple, right? You get real functional hormones happening in a male body. It's quite simple and straightforward, and that's what I love about it. I can't make a long video about this, which is probably why I'm rambling on about a bunch of other stuff. Elevated cortisol manually decreases testosterone over time. And remember, it's not the day-to-day. It's not like, oh, I had a stressful week and now my testosterone's low. It doesn't work that quickly. The body's very intelligent. When cortisol is elevated for long enough, even if it's still within normal range on a lab test, testosterone will start to decline. And over the years, or over a year, depending on the degree of stress, testosterone might get lower. It might go out of range, or it might stay within range, but just be too low for that person. Right? You talk about baseline on a lab test. Baseline. What's optimal in a lab test? That's why I love having people do lab tests when they're in a healthy, thriving state, because then we've got their numbers. We've got their ranges. So that 10 years down the road, when there's a problem, we know what their levels are supposed to be. And we're not just relying on what the lab says. So with testosterone, as cortisol increases a little bit, testosterone's come down. And so it's just it's a seesaw. It's this simple. It's a seesaw. Okay? How do we boost testosterone? Deal with the adrenaline, deal with the adrenal gland, deal with the cortisol. All right, so if you're having chronically low testosterone levels, you might want to look at your stress. You might want to look at your adrenal fatigue, because adrenal fatigue in men is not something I see as much coming into my clinic. I see women coming in identifying adrenal fatigue, but they identify adrenal fatigue through the other hormones. I'm not sleeping well. My estrogen is off because my periods are off. I think I have a thyroid problem. I've looked it up. There's a lot of information on that. People don't come in and say my blood sugar, cortisol. They don't make that connection. I have to, usually. But men, they got less to go on. They just don't feel like themselves. They don't feel so strong and robust and themselves resilient, because this might have happened. And just like a good, strong man, it's usually subtle, the problem. And so what we do is it's my job to recognize that. But if you're not feeling quite like yourself, gentlemen, maybe take a look and go, I wonder if my cortisol's a little off. Maybe we'll just address that, and we'll look and see if I've been doing an amazing job of functioning in society, and I've been doing my very best to be as good and as functional and as strong and resilient of a person as I possibly can. I've been goal-oriented, I've been successful, but I'm tired. I'm not feeling like myself. I feel like I can't get through the day as easily as I used to. I'm not sleeping as well. I got some food cravings. I'm getting a belly. Never had a belly before. Maybe I'm getting some back fat too. Maybe I'm getting sore, tense muscles. Maybe my knees are cracking more. Maybe I'm getting my toes are clicking more. Or I've got that like arch, that pain in the arch of my foot, and my boots are getting uncomfortable, and I just keep having to buy more and more expensive boots, and then eventually they just don't work anymore. That could be a sign of endocrine dysfunction. All right? So, how do we get testosterone levels back up to optimal? Bring cortisol back down. Manage the adrenal system. Manage the cortisol levels. And eventually, over time, it takes a long time to get ourselves into this kind of predicament. It takes a little while to get ourselves back out as well. You'll have to be patient, but usually, gentlemen will see results within a month. I think that's all I have to say. I think I've rambled as much as I possibly could on this very simple situation. Give me a call if you need.